World of Warcraft launched on November 23, 2004. This massively multiplayer online role-playing game redefined the genre. It is one of the biggest selling games in the world, has a dedicated player base in the millions, and has survived and outlived countless WoW clones and challengers to the franchise. Yeah, we know all of this, but why? Why is it so popular? And what is it that makes people keep coming back time and again? I can't speak for anyone else, but I can tell you why I do. I have been playing World of Warcraft on and off for 14 years. My brother started playing on launch, and it always bugged me whenever I called him. He would either be in a raid or holding a guild meeting or something. "Pause it," I would say. "You can't pause an MMO," was his response. I'd never played an online game before, so this baffled me. Why can't you pause it? He suggested many times that I should buy it and find out, but as I'm not a fan of fighting games, it never really appealed. It was only after the Burning Crusade, the first expansion, when that was released, I took an interest. Hearing the lore of the game was intriguing and made me wonder if there was more to this than just simple hack and slash. At my local gaming store, way back before downloads were a thing, they were selling the WoW Battle Chest, which came with the base game, the Burning Crusade expansion, and 30 free days of playtime. I remember it costing relatively little money, so I thought, hey, why not? Famous last words. I was hooked immediately. Joining my brother's guild gave me instant access to other people who helped me through the early stages of the game. I chose to be a Draenei, one of the new races from the Burning Crusade expansion, and as I wanted to be a magic wielder, what better class than mage? Since I'm not a fan of fighting, I called him Maulite, because he mauls lightly. For the next 6 months, I was spending every free second I had in Azeroth. I would be online into the early hours of the morning, questing and grinding, gaining levels faster than anyone else in the guild. I was loving it. The story, the landscapes, the dungeons, and the endless conversations with guildmates. Every Wednesday morning at around 2 AM, the server shuts down for a few hours, at least here in the UK, and a group of us would build a campfire, sit around it, and chat until the game kicked us out. I still remember those moments fondly. As an aside, when Classic was released, I did check out what vanilla was like, but personally, it's not for me. There were so many quality of life changes for TBC that I find the original to be punishingly difficult. Maybe it would be different with a great guild behind me. Maybe. I am keen to go back and replay the Burning Crusade though when that's released later this year. I will need to find a decent guild though, because playing solo was not an option, even back then. Anyway, back to the Prime timeline. Eventually, my gaming life slowed as real life took over. I had a new job, which brought with it a highly active social life, but I always made time for WoW. When the third expansion, Wrath of the Lich King, released in 2008, I took a few days off work to be able to play it. I remember catching the boat from Stormwind and sailing across the ocean to the frozen lands of Northrend for the first time, filled with excitement. Unlike a lot of people, I had no prior knowledge of the franchise. I hadn't played any of the Warcraft games before, this was my first MMO, and I'd never even been a fan of the RPG genre before, so everything was fresh and new to me. As I progressed, the story and backstory was explained to me in detail, so I never felt I was missing out on anything. There is a lot of lore in these games. As someone who loves deep storytelling, it was fascinating to read, hear and play as it unfolded. I can totally understand why this is a favourite expansion for so many people. But as good as it is, my favourite was the next expansion, Cataclysm. The world as we knew it had completely changed, ripped apart by Deathwing, an unimaginably massive world-destroying dragon. Everything was different now. The world was literally torn apart in places. New landmasses had appeared on the map, and the Horde and Alliance teamed up to battle this immediate threat to their existence. I'd been playing almost daily for 3 years at this point. The game needed that injection of something totally new to shake things up. And it wasn't just the landscapes that had changed. The quests in this expansion are, in my opinion, some of the best Blizzard has ever produced. Riding a seahorse in a zone entirely underwater, or treasure hunting in the Oldham Desert with Harrison Jones. As a huge Ancient Egypt and Indiana Jones fan, these were particularly thrilling to play through. Temples, tombs, sphinxes and hieroglyphs. I completed every quest and didn't want to leave the area. It wasn't all good though. Cataclysm was only 5 levels long, which made it feel like half an expansion, and some of the dungeons and raids weren't very exciting. I'm looking at you, Throne of the Four Winds and Vortex Pinnacle. But overall, I enjoyed the variety the expansion had to offer. Cataclysm also has one of the best raids in the game, Firelands. I have soloed that place so many times and I still don't own the Pure Blood Firehawk. It only has a 1% drop rate, but I have done it more than 100 times. Surely it should be mine by now. I do own the Flame Talon though, which for some reason doesn't fly, and I managed to get the Core Hound on the 10th anniversary celebration raid, which fits right in here. In 2012, Blizzard once again decided to raise the level cap by only 5, this time from 85 to 90. A brand new land had sprouted up in Azeroth, and we now had a new playable race of pandas. It sounded terrible on paper, but Mists of Pandaria was generally praised by most of the fandom. I looked it up, and apparently the history of the Pandarians dates back to Warcraft 3 when they were added as an Easter egg, and were also teased in the base game and subsequent expansions. But it was still a shock to see fighting pandas in a game filled with orcs, aliens and demons. Mists, though, was a blast to play from the opening sequence onwards. Landing on Pandaria for the first time and seeing the beautiful Asian-inspired landscape was another welcome change. After the Horde and Alliance's alliance in Wrath, the two factions were once again in opposition, with Garrosh Hellscream being the big bad and the endgame's final boss. The lore, as always, was deep and well written. Learning about the ancient Mogu, the different sectors of Pandaren culture, and the history of the race was really interesting. I'm sure most people don't play games for the story, but for me, it's the main reason I'm a gamer. I spent a lot of time exploring and grinding for Mists, and I enjoyed most of it, even doing the dailies on the Timeless Isle. It is around this time I was poached by one of the biggest guilds on the server. They'd been looking through the top 10 lists of all the classes, and I was number 9 in the list of mages. On a side note, I have played every race and every class, but my favourite, by far, is mage. Yes, it will take you longer to level. You might die more often being a cloth wearer, your DPS might not be as strong as other players, and it might also be impossible to win PvP matches, but you get teleportation, and that for me is the best part about being a mage. I love tanking as a paladin, and how strong you can be as a warlock, but being able to teleport anywhere at any time is a skill that cannot be underestimated, and it has been a real time saver while making this video. Anyway, back to Mists. Apart from the odd few, the raids and dungeons were all very different and for the most part exhilarating to play through. The Thunder King and Thunder Isle were great. I spent many hours grinding to get the mounts from there and the Isle of Giants. But my favourite of all the raids was the first one, Mogoshan Vaults. Your guide on this journey is Lore Walker Cho, who is voiced by Jim Cummings. If you've watched any animated feature in the past 40 years, you will have heard him. He's one of the most talented voiceover artists in the world. He's the voice of Winnie the Pooh and Tigger. He also plays Hondo in Star Wars The Clone Wars and can be found in games such as Gabriel Knight, Elder Scrolls, Baldur's Gate and Fallout 4. As a geek, I'm a huge fan. Lore Walker Cho narrates as you move from room to room, giving you the backstory of where you are. A hidden entrance opens up and you are led into a chamber with an astral cloud serpent named Elegon standing guard. If you beat this boss, there is a very small chance you could win your very own rideable and flyable astral cloud serpent. I wanted it. No, I needed it. But the drop rate is, in both normal and heroic, is 1%. The same as the Firelands mount I still can't get my hands on. I mean, it's not the worst drop rate in the game, but it's pretty tough. In all my group raids, no one ever claimed it, but I did see 1 or 2 people flying around on one, usually in Stormwind outside the auction house, gloating show-offs that they are. I tried to push it out my mind, but that shimmering transparent blue dragon had to be mine. At least one day. In 2016, I was able to run the raid solo, so once a week, every week, I would try. I even uploaded a guide to YouTube, which has become one of my most watched videos on this channel. but I wasn't successful in my quest for Elegon, at least not on that occasion. About a year ago, I'd got on the run down to a fine art. I just used Arcane Blast on everything and could complete the whole raid in a few minutes. Unfortunately, I wasn't recording at the time, but here it is, and here I am riding it. Elegon is definitely my favourite mount. Until the day I get my hands on the reins of the mighty caravan Brutasaur, but at 5 million gold I may have to sell a few of Morlight's limbs first. But who needs legs, right? Oh, and I almost forgot, Pokemon was introduced into this expansion. They're called pet battles, but they are very similar. I was too busy to get into it at the time. That came in the next expansion, Warlords of Draenor. The year was 2014, and everyone was excited because we were able to go back to Outland in the past when it was still Draenor, and we finally got player housing, something we'd all been asking for years. Unfortunately, for me and a lot of the fandom, it didn't work. We all thought it would, and many of us really tried, but something wasn't right with this expansion, and after 7 years of me playing, it was only then that I began to drift away from WoW. I still completed the main story arc with Morlight and my Pally-ult, but I didn't stick around for the endgame content. It's easy to place the blame on garrisons, but I really do think that played a big part in the downfall of Warlords. The player housing was your own city centre square that only you had access to, unless you invited someone in, of course. It meant it was lifeless, in a game which is all about teamwork and seeing other players wherever you go. It made this massive online game feel sterile and lonely. The art style is fantastic, and getting to see Draenor, especially Nagrand, in its former glory was great. It just didn't have the, and I'm really sorry for this, wow factor. I played for a few months and then logged off for about 2 years. This was the longest break I'd ever had from WoW. For a while, I was still paying my monthly subscription, hoping that would spur me to go back, but no part of me wanted to play the game anymore. I finally cancelled and stepped away. It's strange, and I don't know if this is just me, but even when I'm away from WoW, I still think about it. The strongest of those memories are of flying over Stormwind with the epic music in the background and the feeling of nostalgia rushing over me. It's that thought which I know links me directly to the game and keeps me going back. So even after my extended absence, in 2016, I bought Legion and logged back in for the 6th expansion. Legion is brilliant. Rolling a demon hunter, teaming up with Illidan, and connecting the story to the Burning Crusade, all epic. Especially for the jumpers, you know the ones, the guys you pick up in LFR who jump their way through raids. Now they can double jump. Perhaps we all did that when we rolled a demon hunter, at least in the beginning. Elements and core mechanics from Warlords were carried over into Legion, but how do I put this? They didn't seem to suck as hard anymore. All in all, it was a well-crafted return to how good the game used to be, and I enjoyed it. But I didn't feel that invested anymore, and I couldn't understand why. I joined a really great guild who were active on Discord chat and fun to play with. We'd run endgame content together, and on our first playthrough of the Tomb of Sargeras, I won the Abyss Worm. It has a 5% drop rate, and the rest of the guild had been trying to get it for weeks, and I was the first. Oops. It's not even my favourite mount, but I didn't tell them that. My only real gripe with the expansion was Suramar, one of the most beautiful places ever created for the game, and yet you couldn't freely walk around it. You had to be in stealth mode the whole time, which meant you weren't able to enjoy your surroundings. That always bugged me. After a few months of logging in every day, I started feeling lethargic and took a break, telling my guild mates I would be back after Christmas. Except I didn't go back. Maybe it was me. Maybe Draenor had killed my love for the game. Or maybe I was just older and didn't have time anymore. The following year I wrote and directed a musical for the London stage, and in 2018 I got married. The next expansion, Battle for Azeroth, came out when I was on my honeymoon. Knowing I wouldn't be around to play it, I didn't buy the game, and I actually wondered if I ever would. Of course, I did buy it and play it eventually, in December that year actually, but my head wasn't in the game, and after getting Morlight to the max level, I quit. I didn't even finish the quest lines, let alone do any of the endgame content. In fairness, I was busy writing a book, and in October 2019, REFRACTION was released, thankfully to critical acclaim. My first published novel brings video games and characters into our world, along with a whole host of other characters and beings. If you're a fan of science fiction, you should check it out. The next few months were filled with press interviews and building up a bigger following on social media, which I found to be a lot like grinding in WoW. Then the pandemic hit, and for many of us, we were in lockdown. Personally, I went into survival mode, and the creativity centre of my brain switched off, meaning I couldn't work. So I turned to gaming, but not to WoW. I needed single-player linear storytelling to get me through 2020. Red Dead Redemption 2, Watch Dogs 2, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Cyberpunk, even The Sims 4 with my brain working on storylines. But the whole time I could hear World of Warcraft calling to me. That and the WoW soundtracks I play almost daily. I resisted in November because of Cyberpunk, but knew I would be back to play it. Earlier this year, I bought Shadowlands, the Heroic Edition. I'm a mount hoarder, and that Everworm looked too cool not to own. As the music welcomed me back once again, I remember thinking, I love what you've done with the place. Reducing the level cap back down to 60 was a good call, in my opinion. Having all the expansions playable whenever you want, or going through the new starting level and leading on to the Battle for Azeroth storyline. It makes the game more accessible for new and old players without losing anything. Exactly what games should be doing now. I talk about this more in a previous video, I'll put the link in the top right. World of Warcraft has changed many times since I started playing 14 years ago, but I think this is one of the best changes they've ever made because it will benefit everyone and keep the game alive and relevant for many years to come. I may be a filthy casual these days, but I can't imagine not being able to sign back in whenever I need a WoW fix. I was also really happy to discover we can now fly in every zone. I hated not being able to fly from Draenor onwards. It really slows the game down way too much when you have to walk or ride everywhere. And the months-long grind to complete every fetch or kill quest just to gain the flying ability was insanity to me, and I presume every adult with a job and or commitments. When I was younger, I had the time to do things like that. It's how I got this legendary cape for doing the Black Prince questline back in Mists. But I don't have that amount of spare time anymore. I've only just started Shadowlands, but everything about this expansion so far makes me smile. I'm currently battling in the Moor with Jaina and Thrall. Not only that, I got to go back to Icecrown Citadel, have a chat with the former Lich King, and agree to, once again, save the world and all the realms from ultimate annihilation. I love seeing old characters brought back, especially the Lich King. It's great to see the Alliance and Horde team up again, and I'm really excited for what's to come, not only in Shadowlands, but also the future content Blizzard are bound to release. As much as we moan and dislike certain elements, expansions, mechanics, or garrisons, for millions of us around the globe, World of Warcraft is a part of our lives. For me, it's like a family member I go and stay with every now and again, sometimes for months, sometimes for years at a time. Whenever I do, it always feels like home. For anyone interested, my playtime with Morelight is 85 days, 3 hours, 30 minutes and 36 seconds, which is approximately 2,043 hours of playtime. This is, of course, just for one character, and I have around 30 alts on this and other servers. Some I've played almost as much as Morelight, others just for a few in-game days. Added all together, it equates to an enormous amount of time I don't even want to calculate. Has it been worth it? Yes, I would say so. We all have things that occupy and inspire our minds. For me and millions of others, that's gaming. It won't keep our bodies fit like traditional sports, but it will keep our minds sharp, and there are many communities we can join to build bonds and friendships with. Oh, and if you sat through this entire video and thought, wait a minute, why is there no Horde footage? Here you go. I do have Horde characters on a different server, but I've never really been a fan of the storylines. Well, apart from the Tauren. 99% of my time is spent on the Alliance side. So there you go. Alliance is not just for noobs. And that's my 14 years in WoW, all compacted into this one video. I had hoped to gain over 1,000 subscribers on my channel so I could actually monetize my videos, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. If you could please like, comment, and most importantly share this video, that would be great. And if you want to read my debut novel Refraction, please check it out. You can read the first 5 chapters for free on Amazon. In a nutshell, a company in London has created the technology to bring people's dreams to life. Gaming characters are plentiful, as well as everything else my brain could think up, and as I'm a geek, that's a lot of stuff. The dinosaur exhibit is awesome. Links are in the description below. Until next time, please take care of yourselves, and I'll see you all soon. Goodbye.